Hey everybody, E.G.O here and welcome to my E.G.O page tier list. Yes, I've made this one a long time ago, but that one was dumb and bad, so here I'm remaking it. There also have been added a couple of E.G.O pages to Roland's floor, and I've also added the pages of Shower, Gebra and Roland here as well, so we can rank them with the other E.G.O pages. Let's quickly run through the tiers before we start ranking, and let's start with Object.dot. Object.dot pages are basically what we will always take regardless of the situation, because it is just too good. So the pages that can deal a lot of damage, inflict a lot of status elements to your enemies, or can buff your allies and do that really well, those belong in Object.dot. Next up, Limited. Those are the pages that are really strong and do the job really well, but you will probably take the Object.dot pages over them, so they are really strong but not game-breakingly strong. Hardcover pages are the ones that are kind of overshadowed by limited pages, but they are still really strong, and you can take them in some situations. Like if it is your third E.G.O page and you've taken the strongest pages from like Object.dot and limited tiers already, you will probably go for something on the third page that won't give you as much usability but will still be useful. The paperback pages are kind of useless or overshadowed by hardcover pages really strongly. These pages you probably would not take unless you have some really strong strategy with them. The burn pages are the ones that just do more harm than good. So if something actually kills your allies before it kills your enemies, it belongs to the burn tier. You won't get anything out of the burn tier. Well, unless you once again run a specific strategy. So let's start with Apocalypse. Apocalypse is a really strong page on Bina's floor, which has a 20 to 25 roll if I recall correctly, and it gets buffed if you have low HP, as well as if the enemy has low HP. So basically, the longer you go in the fight, the stronger Apocalypse becomes. I don't think it's Object.dot. Okay, maybe it's Object.dot. On Bina's floor you probably won't take anything else. Okay, no, there is one page that you will take over Apocalypse on Bina's floor, but Apocalypse is a strong second to that. So I guess it belongs either in low Object.dot or high limited. I really like this page, it deals a lot of damage, but it has no other abilities, so let's go with the high limited tier. Now one of the new E.G.O pages, Aspiration. Well, what can I say about Aspiration? I think this is right here. It is a strong page once again. I think it is stronger than Apocalypse, but it takes half of your HP and buffs your allies with 1 strength next scene. So I think I've already made this point, but I think that Aspiration would be an actually good page if it costed less than it costs now, or if it gave you more buffs, because the attack roll is fine. It is really strong, it deals a lot of damage, but the attack roll itself isn't enough to justify taking half of your HP as damage. That's just not something you want to do. Next up, Big. Big is kind of a page that I don't really take a lot on Bina's floor, because I think it is overshadowed by many other pages, like for example Apocalypse that I've already ranked. I think Big is not that bad of a page on its own. It has an interesting ability of lowering the cost of 2 pages in your hand, but I find it to be a bit less strong than everything else. I put it in paperback tier, but not because it is weak, but because it is completely overshadowed by everything else on Bina's floor. Unless you have like Twilight, which is a worse page. Next we have this page. I actually don't remember the name of it, but it's a page of the Dream of a Black Swan. I think that's the remote name. It is a mistake page with light drain, I think, yeah, it is light drain. It drains light from your enemies, and I mean, it's kind of good. You probably will go for something else on Hot's floor, like Red Eyes or Letitia's E.G.O or like Sanguine Desire, so I think it is kind of overshadowed, but it is not a weak page per se. It is actually really useful and strong, but it is kind of overshadowed. But unless Unless you're going for a full bleed HOTS floor, you probably won't take Sanguine Desire in other situations, so in those situations you probably will go for this page over that, so I'll put it on hard color because it is not completely overshadowed like Big is. Blind Rage. Okay, we know what the usage of Blind Rage is. Blind Rage is used with Difference Exodia, when you don't have any allies on your side and you can just easily murder your enemies with that amount of damage. But if you take Blind Rage on its own, it kills your allies really quickly, and they usually have less HP than your enemies, so you will kill your team and then die yourself, because even with 3 9 to 15 attacks you will lose to your enemies, because they just will go out of the stagger, not be dead, and you can't use this page again. I mean, yes, it is really strong with Difference Exodia, I understand, but I just want to clarify that I rank these pages on their own usage, so I can't just give this Blind Rage object dot tier because it is really strong in Difference Exodia. It does kill your entire team, so it does belong in Burnt. But know that I do understand that it works really well in Difference Exodia, that is true. Now Cobalt Scar. Cobalt Scar is a weird page. It deals... it has a lot of attacks, well, it has actually 2 attacks, but the first one recycles. And after it's hit with the second attack, only then the damage is applied. I do not know why they would make that. To this day, I've played this game for a lot of time already, but I do not understand why they made that ability. But I guess it's not that bad in attack. I mean, it deals a lot of damage. And it has recycling dice, so you can farm a lot of emotion coins. But in reality, there are better choices for Gebra's floor. Like, there are 3 pages that I go for on Gebra's floor, and Cobalt Scar is not one of them. I put it in low hardcover tier because maybe I'm missing something. Maybe the ability of dealing all damage in one hit instead of gradually dealing it every time is somehow stronger, but I don't understand. I mean, the only thing I can think about the damage is maybe it doesn't get crushed by protection that much, but also like protection isn't that big of a thing to worry about. Okay, we'll get to protection later. Now we have Crimson Scar, which is also on Gebra's floor, and it is also not one of the pages I usually take there. It synchronizes you with the Red Riding Hooded Mercenary, and I don't find the synchronization pages to be that strong, honestly. I think they're great if you are low on light or page restoration, so you just synchronize with one of the abnormalities and bam, you have a whole hand. So it is kind of useful. I think Red Riding isn't that great of a synchronization of herself, but I'm trying to think of a situation where you will take it over other abilities, and I cannot think of one. I am going to put it above Cobalt Sky, I think. Maybe I'll even put Cobalt Sky there. The couple is actually a pretty strong page. It drains light and inflicts status ailments to your enemies. It is pretty strong. It is a mass attack with 3 attacks. Its damage potential is not insane, but it is alright. For a page that is mainly debuffing, it is really strong. I find it to be very useful in Nezek's floor. I rarely even play in Nezek's floor, but it is really useful when I do. I always take the couple, so I will put it somewhere here with Apocalypse. That's Silence, I think, is the name of this page, and it's not that strong. It gives you 1 more die, and it is a melee attack. So the thing with the 1 more die is the fact that you have to either use it and take up a lot more pages of light for that 1 die in one scene, or you just not use it and maybe even take an attack on it because you cannot block it with anything else because you don't have enough light or pages. So it is a nightmare to deal with when you don't have enough page draw or light iteration in your deck. It is strong with Singleton, sure, because Singleton always has a plethora of lightened pages, but in other situations I don't find that one die to be useful at all. And it is overshadowed by other pages on Hogmas floor, which there are a lot of strong ones there. Let's put it somewhere in high paperback. It is not weak, for sure, but I think the ability is really useless. Maybe even under Koboska, maybe even under Big. So first, I think it was renamed to something else. I don't exactly know the new name, but it is strong. It is definitely our first object dart. It can give you up to 5 strengths, it deals a lot of damage and inflicts bleed to the enemies. It also gives enemies 1 strength as well, but on Gabriel's floor you probably won't care about that 1 strength on them, because you stack like 5 everything. So it is really strong. I like it a lot, but I think it kind of lacks in damage. It is kind of a big roll, but if you use it on... oh, we cannot use it on Gabriel actually. Well, that is a problem, yeah, that low roll is a problem. But I guess with the 5 strengths you still won't care that much. And even if you get like 3 strengths and not 5, it's still okay, still a lot of strengths, and you inflict bleed. Faded Memories. Faded Memories is kind of probably my favorite page on Chizette's floor, because it gives pages to all allies, and it is really strong for that. The damage potential is kind of lackluster, only 2 dice, but every one of those dice gives you 1 page on every ally, and it is really strong for that. So I put it somewhere in limited tier. I don't think it is exactly object dart, because, you know, it still lacks in damage a lot, and you probably won't hit all of your enemies, but even if you hit one, you get page draw, and that's insane. Faint Aroma. Well, I've already made this point as well, but I don't see how the ability of dealing more damage to a staggered enemy is any useful. Like, if you've staggered an enemy, you probably are about to kill them anyway. You don't need those a couple of additional damage. The best stacks are usually used to actually stagger enemies and not defeat staggered enemies. You have melee pages for that. Even like weak melee pages with the fatal resistances to everything still do a lot of damage. And you don't need really a mess stack to clean up all of the staggered enemies. So I don't find the ability of Faint Aroma very useful. But I guess you can spam it on Nezek's floor along with the couple, and it kind of makes a lot of damage, does a lot of damage. But the ability is so weird. I put it somewhere in high hardcover tier because you want to take it over the couple and some other pages on Nezek's floor, so yeah. It's not particularly bad, but the ability is just too weird to be used. False Throne is kind of a weird page as well. It revives your dead allies. I think for 7 cast. And I to this day do not know what is the usage of that. I think they actually revive with 3 light, and like it would be okay if they revived with full light, but they revived with 3, I'm pretty sure, and that's awful. 3 light is nothing. When you have like ideally 4 people revived by False Throne, they will be useful for like 1 attack each, and then they will perish next scene. Like, what's the point? You can't do much. And also, like, it's useful if you have courage, but also if you've lost 4 allies with courage, you're probably already dead. False Throne doesn't really save you there. I haven't found myself in a lot of situations where I was like, I lost the fight, but if I had False Throne, I would have won that. I don't see that too often, so yeah. Somewhere in the paperback, it doesn't make your fight more difficult, doesn't really ruin your game, but it is still very weak in my opinion. For 7 casts, that's true, yeah. Now, Force Match Flame. I think it is a 12 to 40 roll, with a lot of burn affliction, and you can get it really early in the game. Like Milky's Floor is your first floor realization, so you will get this E.G.O page probably before you even beat the Crying Children. And on that fight, the Crying Children, it actually shines a lot. So this page is very useful, especially for the point in the game where you get it. I put some wisdom object dot, I really like it. It's like, it's not even game breaking, it's just you get it so early that you can make a lot of usage out of it. Now this page, I actually don't remember its name, but it is from Fragments of the Universe, a fragment of the universe. In my last E.G.O page tier list, I put it right here, because I thought it was a mass attack, but it's actually a ranged page, so it only deals damage to one enemy. But it deals a lot of stagger damage, so I think it still belongs here. Maybe even over the couple. No, probably not over the couple, but it is very strong. It deals a lot of stagger damage and kind of is the inverse of Faint Aroma, because instead of waiting for the enemy to get staggered with this page, you actually use it to stagger the enemy. And in conjunction, yeah, maybe Faint Aroma is actually useful with conjunction with this page. But also, like, do you really need that? No. So Faint Aroma still stays here, and this page is in limited tier. Blizzard? No, it's not Blizzard, it's Frost Splinter? Ice Splinter? Oh, I am terrible at remembering new names. But basically this page has 2 dice that are pretty strong on their own, and it inflicts a lot of debuffs to your enemies. Mainly Bind, I think. I find it to be very useful because it is very useful with Bremen's page, who uses blunt attacks to deal even more debuffs, so it is really strong. Especially when you use it with Bremen and someone else in one scene, you get a lot of debuffs out of that. I like Ice Splinter a lot, Frost Splinter. So put it somewhere in limited tier, probably under Osmos ability, because it's useful, but it's not like incredibly strong, like Page Draw is. Now for Furioso. Furioso is a weird page, because it is the exact same as, let's actually put this here as well, the exact same as Great Split Vertical, but it costs less, it costs only 3, for 20 to 39, that is insane, that's insane cost. But you have to use all of Roland's pages before using Furioso, and that's kind of difficult to do. Not even it's difficult to use 9 pages, it's difficult to use 9 pages as quickly as possible to have Furioso really early, because having Furioso early means you can deal a lot of damage to your enemy. But if you have it late, you probably won't use it because you won't have enough light, or you won't have an opportunity where you will actually benefit from using this page. Like, Gabra's attack makes an opportunity for that. Because she has a lot of counter die, well, she only has 1 counter die, but she has it at all times. So you can just sacrifice one of your speed dice to actually attack with that attack. It does cost 5 light, but with Mountain of Corpses you don't care about light. And you don't have any limiter like Roland's 9 page use on Great Speed Vertical. So I think Furioso is a bit weaker. I think Furioso is somewhere in limited tier, because this is still strong, it is a very strong attack, it deals a lot of damage, and it only costs 3 light, even though you have to use all 9 pages before that. But Gabra's attack, Great Split Vertical, goes here in Object Dot tier, probably under Thirst, but it is still very strong. Now we have Gold Rush. Gold Rush is an okay page, it has 5 to 15 individual roll, and it gives you strength for every hit. And it also restores 1 light for every hit, I think. That is very strong. It is really weak for an attacking page, and I really didn't expect that from King of Grid, but it gives you a lot of strength, it gives you light, so why wouldn't you use it? It's really strong for buffs on a single ally. Actually, probably even useful with Difference Exodia, because you get a lot of strength and you restore light, which is very crucial for Difference Exodia. So yeah, very strong actually. Some limited tier probably, over the couple. Cost light restoration. Green Stem. So my problem with Green Stem is that I really dislike the pages that have 3 individual dice, and the couple is 1, that's true. But unlike other pages, this one doesn't have any special abilities. It is kind of stronger, I think, than the couple in Faint Aroma, but it has no abilities. And The problem here is that protection actually kind of kills these kinds of pages, because if you have one summation roll and the enemy has like 3 protection, they will just protect themselves from 3 damage out of like 17 or 28, so it doesn't really matter. But when going against a triple singular attack, individual attack actually, a triple individual attack, they will defend themselves from 9 damage, which is a lot more than 3. So I don't know. For pages with no abilities, it is supposed to be used for damage, but protection kind of counters it. And it also doesn't have like insane rolls. It has some okay rolls, but they're not so strong to not have an ability. So if someone had cover tier, is definitely not that bad of a page. You might take it. It also has a cool animation, but like not much after that. Grinder is a cool page. I like Grind. It is once again a 3 attack mass attack page, but for some reason I like it a lot more than other pages of such type. It is also an attacking page, I'm pretty sure, but I don't think it's like bleed or something. I can't really recall, so maybe I'm remembering it wrong, maybe it's not that strong. So in reality, Grinder is like, it's a good page. I like Grinder a lot. I've dealt so much damage with Grinder, especially when grind with Unchained Rest strategy on your sword. It is very strong, I think. And also, Green Stamp doesn't have like buffs from the flow itself, while the Grinder can get a lot of buffs from not clean, clean, and I think recharge. Like you can get a lot of power buffs with Grinder. So it is much more useful than Green Stamp, even though I think it has lower rolls. Harmony is a strong page, but it is kind of weird. It has recycling dice, which is pretty nice because you can get emotion coins, but I don't know. I usually don't like melee pages in E.G.O pages if they don't have a strong ability behind them, or if they can't dish out a lot of damage. Harmony is really weird. I haven't taken it a lot because it is kind of overshadowed by everything else on the sword's floor. So I don't know, I don't like Harmony that much. Somewhere in paperwork tier, I think. It's really weird. Now Harvest is a range page, and also I somehow managed to get 3 range pages in a row. Okay. Harvest is really good because it deals a lot of damage. It also gives you an evade roll, I think, and it gets buffed by the amount of allies. That buff isn't that strong because the roll itself is already really high, and you don't need those like 2, okay, not 2, but like 4 strengths. You don't need it for strengths. You have a lot of strengths already. And like ranged pages are really strong on their own because you can interrupt enemies' attacks, stagger them before they can make their turn, and like unless they have a mass attack page, you can easily stagger enemies with ranged pages. And when they are this strong, that's even better. I put it somewhere in limited tier because it is very strong, probably under Apocalypse. But it is really useful, and I usually take it on Children's Floor. Now, Heaven is basically the same thing, but I think it deals much less damage. It does not give you an evade roll, but instead it actually steals one of the dice on the enemy, which is very strong. It is kind of... It's kind of like Dead Silence, but instead of giving you one die, it takes 1 die away from your enemy, which is much more useful because you don't have to use more pages to go against that, and just the enemy cannot do anything with that die. It's just sealed. It's really strong. I like it a lot. Above Harvest because die seal is stronger than 1 evade die. Hornet is just a strong ranged attack with nothing else. I don't remember it having any other abilities. It is just a strong ranged pierce attack, which I find to be alright because, as I already said, ranged E.G.O pages are strong and useful. Now we have In the Name of Love and Hate, I think it's the name of this E.G.O page. It is a mass attack, I think with 22 to 33. Blunt damage. It is kind of pure damage. Doesn't have any other abilities, but has an okay roll. So if you're not running Tifus Exodia, you probably will take this page for just more damage and sucking up enemies' dice. That's like the entire ability of this page. So yeah, somewhere in hardcover, maybe limited. I put it on hardcover because it doesn't have any super cool abilities that you can use, but it's still strong. Now, talking about super cool abilities, we have Justicia. That is not how you pronounce that name, but I do not care. This page is a melee E.G.O page, and I already said that I don't like melee E.G.O pages, but this one is an exception because it deals percentage damage on your dependent on your enemy's health, meaning it can do up to I think 75 damage on an attack, which is insane. It's really strong, it deals a lot of damage, it only costs 3 light I think, so it's very cheap as well. It is just a great damage source, you will use it a lot on Venus floor. Actually probably not on Exodia, probably on Beat Exodia you won't use it that much, but it's definitely the best page out of all of these that we already ranked. On Letitia's E.G.O page, I did not know what it did when I made the first tier list, but now I know. And after thinking about it a bit more, I think it is an incredible page. So it is a pretty weak page in attack because it doesn't deal a lot of damage. It has like one individual roll, which isn't too strong, but it has an ability that is really crucial to this page's usability. It gives your enemies a copy of Small Gift, which is a very weak one block attack, which they will prioritize using over their other attacks. So it basically seals dice of all enemies you hit, but it is better than sealing dice, because by giving you that one block die, you can 1. Use one of the E.G.O pages, this E.G.O page, to this expression to deal a lot of stagger damage while rolling against that die, because you will basically do the entire roll of your first block die on this page in stagger damage, and that will be a lot of stagger damage. Second, you can clash against this page and deal basically all of your damage, just kind of one less damage because of that one block die, but it gives you an emotion coin in return, so it is strong from emotion coins as well. I think it is an object that tier, it is very strong, it has a lot of utility to it. And to this expression, I think it has something like a 19 to 30 block die as its first die, and a pretty strong second die that deals plus 10 damage or has plus 10 power when attacking a staggered opponent. So I did say that Faint Aroma is weak because it attacks staggered opponents, but this one actually staggers opponents before attacking them, because an 18 to 30 roll will deal a lot of deflect stagger damage, so it is very useful as well. And that 10 power can kill off enemies really quickly. So I think somewhere limited, probably not Object Dart. I think it's not like as strong as Object Dart pages go, but it is very strong, like really strong. Lamp is a weird page because this, I think it also is a one-day individual mess stack like Letitia, but instead of basically sealing their dice, it nullifies their power, and I find power nullification to be not that strong. The developers love it, but I don't find it to be incredible. Because not only you take power-ups away from your enemy, you actually also nullify your stacks of Jazam and Feeble, and yeah, those are the only two ones. But you get rid of their abilities as well when nullifying power. So that's not too strong, because you will inflict a lot of status elements to your enemies. Well, I guess on Venus floor you won't do that as much, so it's not as useless there, and it's, well, on Venus floor only. So I guess it's not that bad, I think it's in hardcover. Also, now you have to reach impurity to realize Venus floor, I'm pretty sure, which is like, you can't even use it on shower now. So it's pretty useless. The ability. Login, I think is the name of this page now. Before it was Lomba, now it is Login. It is a very strong full attacking page that has 4 dice, the first 3 buff, the fourth one on hit, and the first one I think it can go like up to 12 to 12 roll, which is a very strong roll. All attacks are slashing, I'm pretty sure, maybe the last one is blunt, I can't remember correctly, but it is very strong for attacks. It is a melee page, yeah, but still it deals so much damage, it's very strong. Not to this level of strength, of course, but somewhere in limited tier, I think. It is very strong, I take it on cheeses floor really often. Probably not as often as Howard though, so let's put it here. I don't exactly remember the name of our next E.G.O page, but it is the synchronization page with that one dude who's named in German. So I think this synchronization is stronger than Red Riding because it gives you ranged pages, it gives you mass stacks, it gives you a lot of stuff that is really strong, and it is on your source flow, so you get it early in the game. It is pretty useful. I've played a couple of rounds with the synchronization. It is really well made, and it can also serve you on Eileen when you're fighting her in the normal deliberation ensemble. So yeah, it is very useful. It belongs somewhere in the limited tier, probably kind of low limited tier because still synchronizations are kind of weird, but it is very useful. Probably under the couple, probably under everything, but still unlimited. This is the best mass-stack page of all time, the strongest mass-stack page in the game, great with horizontal, with no additional abilities, but who needs them when you can just one-shot all of your enemies, especially with the ability, with the normality page, I mean goodbye, when you can just use this one page and deal 90 damage to every enemy that you see. That is basically guaranteed to stagger them. Every fight with a lot of enemies, when you don't have to fight a boss and have to fight like Hunt Station, you destroy them easily. This page is great. Marionette. Marionette is one of my favorite pages on the round, I think, because it's just so good. It has one cast and deals so much damage. Yes, it does not upgrade. Well, I forgot that word. Sure. But it makes the cost of your other pages higher next scene, but like it doesn't matter that much because it's only one cost higher, and for that amount of damage it's okay to lose that amount of light. Also, if you run a single strike build because they have been buffed with a new update, with Marionette you will kind of get a lot of emotion coins, and you can actually upgrade your emotion level with this and have full light, so you can manage to use that light even when all of your pages are at high light cost. So it's useful. I like it a lot. Let's put it somewhere limited here. Probably somewhere around Login. It is at that level of strength, I think. I don't know if it's stronger than Hornet actually. Maybe we should put Hornet somewhere here. It is very strong and it is ranged. Mimicry. Mimicry heals you a lot. Especially with the aforementioned goodbye ability. But you have to give it not to Gebera, so you can use it, so it's like weird. Because you cannot use Mimicry with Red Mist page, so it's like you lose a bit of its actual true power. But it is still very useful. If we just forget that Red Mist exists, it is a very strong page because enemy librarians can heal themselves a lot and deal a lot of damage as well. So yeah, it's somewhere in Object Dart tier. Probably around Great Split, but a bit lower because it deals a lot less damage, but it heals you. And it cannot be used on kind of the strongest page in the entire game, so yeah, that's also a problem. Nihil, I think is the name of this page. It has one individual mastic, I'm pretty sure, and it either debuffs everyone on hit or buffs you on use. if you have no other pages in hand. It's kind of useful if you have the abnormality page void. You can use all other pages. You can actually suck up all the pages with void, get strengths, then use the page that you get next scene from usual pages draw, and then use nihil and get its ability. So it is useful with void. Without void, I think it's pretty lackluster. If you have no pages in hand, you probably have lost the game and not actually made a smart move to use nihil. So yeah, it's somewhere in hardcover. Because it has its usages, but they are very limited. Galaxy is also a pretty strong healing page. It is once again a 3-die individual page on Nezach, which is something that I guess they love, because we have the Kappa, Faint Aroma and this. But it actually heals you for the modified roll of the page, which isn't a lot of healing, but it is still okay, and it is I'm pretty sure unused, so even if you cannot deal a lot of damage or even hit, you will still heal yourself on combat start, which can save you in many situations. So yeah, useful, really useful. Pulao is actually pretty strong page because I think it costs like 3 or 2 light, probably 3. And it inflicts disarm and feeble to your enemies. Like, who wouldn't want to use it? You can just spam Pulao all the time and debuff your enemies. That's great on Shell. So you can actually overpower your enemies. Somewhere here, probably above all of the ranged attacks, because it has an actual ability instead of just... No, actually, let's put it somewhere in between Hornet and other ranged pages. Now we have the last synchronization of the game. The synchronization with White Knight. It is really strong in my opinion, but like... Yeah, probably you don't have anything else to go on Hawkma with, so yeah, let's put it on with that. It actually makes all of your librarians, other than the one that used the synchronization, undying before you actually end the synchronization, so it is really strong. It also gives you new decks for the entire team, so if the entire team is running low on pages on light, you can just use the synchronization and get an entire team of ready warriors. So yeah, that's useful. Penitence, I love Penitence a lot, because it heals you, I mean your team, the entirety of your team. It also recovers tag resistance of your team, and while it doesn't have that strong of a roll, I think it has a 9 to 15% roll, it is very useful with its healing capabilities, especially knowing that Hawkma has Baptism for healing as well, so you can make a full healing support with Penitence and Baptism, so yeah, very useful. Probably actually I'll just die because healing is just so overpowered. Pleasure is a page that I never understood. It has 2 rolls, I think a very strong first roll and a weak second roll. Probably the second roll actually recycles, but I can't really remember. And the first one gains power by 2 times the current emotion level, I think, the target's emotion level actually. So it can get a lot of strengths, but also why would you need the strengths on the die that's already strong and not that it's weak? I never suited the page fully. I think you probably won't take it above these 3 pages, so it's somewhere in paperback because it just outclassed so much. Okay, Red Ice. Red Ice is a really strong page on Host Flow that inflicts, I think, Bind, Disarm and Feeble to an enemy. I'm pretty sure it's also ranged. And it has really strong attack abilities. I think it has a second die or first die of 9 to 25, which is wow. For a page with that much debuff and abilities, that's very strong. That's somewhere in limited tier. Probably like the highest limited tier because it's so damn strong and it inflicts debuffs. Regret is the only thing that makes Shao trivial. Let's put it here. It deals a lot of stagger damage based on the maximum stagger damage of your enemy, and that's just insane. It can do up to 70% of your enemy's max stagger, which is a lot when you use it against bosses. It's just so useful. Remorse is one of the new pages, also one of my favorites, because it has 3 really strong attacks on the level of Blind Rage, but it isn't a mass attack. Instead it just murders one of your enemies quickly, and debuffs 3 other allies that are randomly chosen with a random debuff. It can be, I think, Fragile, Disarm, Feeble, Bind, and something else. So yeah, it is very useful. You will probably take Remorse in most situations, and I kind of like it a lot. I'm very biased toward that, so I'll put it somewhere in Object Dart. Under Penitence. The good desire. 100 power on the last die. Do I need to say more? It's so good. And I always found bleed teams on HOT to be much stronger than block teams, because debuff support there is insane, and I think some of the abnormality pages actually support bleed as well, so it's so good. Especially when you run it with... I can't remember the name of that page, but that one page that has... that doubles your bleed infliction. You can just go for purple tier pierce stance, attack an enemy a couple of times, then use Sanguine Desire and deal like 150 total damage with it. It's so strong. It's so strong. It's like broken actually. Smile is a page that has grown on me tremendously over the course of me playing this game. Because at first I found it to be like kind of useless because it didn't have a lot of strengths, and the debuffs, I found them to be kind of useless at first, but now I understand that it's incredibly strong. It debuffs all of your enemies, it has a 7 to 14 one singular die, so you won't deal a lot of damage, but you will probably hit all of your enemies, and you will debuff all of them as well, which is very strong. Soul Lament is insane, incredible, genius. I love this page. Like, really good pages are showing up right now, because Soul Lament is one of my favorite pages of all time, I think. It has one range die that rerolls 8 times and has, I think, a 1 to 8 roll, and also deals 3 stagger damage or damage on hit. And with the Unchained Dress ability, with Unchained Dress strategy, it can deal so much damage in a ranged page. It's so great, and knowing that you will probably go for a smoke team on your sword, it can deal even more damage with that. It's insane. It is just a boss killer at this point. It's so good. It's actually probably stronger than Justicia. No, it costs more, I think. Sound of a Star is another page that breaks enemies with the amount of damage it deals. I think it has a roll equal to Apocalypse, but the roll gets buffed by 10 if you have 50% or more stagger damage, or stagger resist, which is pretty easy to get than 50% or less HP. Yeah, this works well with Eugen, but this works well with everyone else, so Object Dart. The Forgotten is a strong page. I mean, I can't say a lot about the Forgotten. It destroys all of your enemies' dice, and it destroys all of the counter dice if you attack them in the one-sided attack and they have counter dice, which is really strong. It's like there is this cheese strategy with disposal on Nikolai, and this is kind of the discount version of that until you get Nikolai, so useful. Probably under Furioso, but it's still very useful. The Human Instinct, I saw a lot of pages a lot of people that love this page, that are just, wow, this is the strongest page on Chill's floor, and I can't really agree with them, because it restores light to all of your allies on hit, but like, page draw is so much more important than light region, because you can get light region pages with page draw, you don't need additional light region there, when you can actually get like Harvest and Logan. But I guess you can go for the Human Instinct. I'm trying to wrap my head around what is worse out of this than Human Instinct. I guess it is kind of stronger than Logan because it is a mass attack page, And maybe you don't need that amount of damage when you can dish out that with your normal pages and you just don't have enough light. It is very situational, but it is strong when taken in the right situation, though it is pretty useful. Okay. I don't find this to be game-breakingly useful, but it is useful. Sword Charm with Tears. It is very strong. I think the last time I used it, it was very weak, and now that I looked at it, it's like insane. I'm pretty sure the second die is like 10 to 18 on a ranged page with 2 dice. It's really good. I don't know if we would take it over Gold Rush. Also, Gold Rush has been dethroned. I think it should be there. It's somewhere in limited tier, which is getting a little crowded, but yeah. Also, why isn't this there? It's so much stronger. And I guess this also has to be somewhere in the middle of the ranged pages. Tower TI showers attack once again, like below, but this one has a very strong roll, inflicts a lot of burn, and has an insanely beautiful animation. So, yeah. Just for the animation itself, it's already in object.tier. It's kind of the better version of Cosmic Flame. It's not as destructively strong when it rolls its max value, but it's more consistent because it has, I think, a floor of 20, while Cosmic Flame has a floor of 12. So you have 8 more power on the lowest roll, so it's pretty okay. And I think it inflicts much more burn. Twilight Valley is a page that's not that strong. It has 2 dice that inflict 1 paralysis each. Maybe it got buffed, maybe not, but I think you probably won't take it over Justicia, Apocalypse, and even Lamp at this point. So somewhere here. You might take it as a second mass stack just to deal more damage to the enemy, but it's definitely not unlimited tier because it's not that useful. Wing Beat is something that I just love and do because it is such a strong page. You see, on its own, it doesn't deal enough damage to be really strong. Okay, no, it does deal a lot of damage, but that's not the thing you take it for. You take it for the enormous amounts of healing when used with Gluttony, because Gluttony actually makes Wing Beat so much stronger because it heals an additional 1 to 3, I think, HP every hit after the first one. And it's so strong with that. And you know that Eugen is kind of the queen of Melchior's Floor, and Eugen has 274, I think, max HP. So healing upwards over 100 HP every, not every scene, but in one scene, is very useful for her. So yeah, Wingbeat is somewhere in object.tier. I love that page a lot. Wrist Cutter is a better version of Lamp. It is a summation mass stack, so it can eat up the entire speed dice of your enemies, and instead of nullifying power, it purges all positive power-ups from your enemies. Basically, you will keep your stacks of Disarm and Feeble, but you will get rid of their strengths and endurance, which is much better than power nullification. So it is somewhere in limited tier. It is really weak on its own, actually. It has a really weak roll, but its ability is really strong, and it kind of deserves having that really weak roll somewhere around Apocalypse, I think. Yazi, 2 dice, mass stack, both dice individual, inflicts a lot of burn and buffs the user. Yeah, that's useful. That's strong. Somewhere around the Forgotten, I think. So yeah, that's kind of the entire list. If I'm wrong anywhere, please let me know. I think this one is much better than the last one. I'm pretty sure there were a lot more than 2 E.G.O pages in Burnt, and now I actually understand that some of them are pretty useful. And yeah, that's it. I can't say much more about this page, this tier list. Wow, I do not know how 49 minutes is enough to make me lose my ability to speak. Wow, I am so bad at speaking this language, that's insane. Okay, thank you for watching and I'll see you around. Goodbye.